Well, hello, it's Gill Fielding again, and this is what's caught my eye in the news and media this week. Well, firstly, it was International Women's Day, and obviously that's a great event. It's a pity we have to have a day, but we should have 365 days. But what caught my eye about it was that the average woman retires with a pension pot that's £100,000 less than a male equivalent. And that's partly due to salary levels, working part-time, time off for babies and so on. And we have to try and repair that disparity. And I do know that women don't take as much financial education or take as much notice of financial education as a male equivalent. And that's something that we need to address. Everybody, male and female, should have a decent pension pot and should be educated accordingly on how to build that up and what you can do. And then back to the pandemic, and I'm going to call this one the pandemic hokey cokey, because we've all heard how we're never going to go back to normal, that everybody's going to carry on working from home when this is all over. But I've always had my suspicions about that, because I think people actually like going to work for lots of reasons, for social reasons, a sense of community and so on. And I think we're all just a bit fed up at staying at home in our pajamas, loafing around on the sofa. So I think we will gradually drift back to work. And strangely enough, there's evidence of that already from Rightmove this week, because all their stats up until recently had indicated that everybody was moving out of city centres to the suburbs. And that was because they wanted different housing for dealing with working from home in a lockdown. But this week, Rightmove published some research which said that actually now people are searching to go the other way, and they've seen a huge increase in searches for rental properties in zones 1 and 2 in London, for example, and over 100% rises in certain areas like Battersea, which are quite close to the centre. And apparently they believe this is because people want to start preparing for going back to work and going back into city centres. And it wouldn't surprise me, there's lots of benefits for living in a city centre. There's cultural, social benefits and so on that you don't have in the suburbs. And what's happened is that rents, for example, in the suburbs have gone up because of the demand, and rents in the city centres have gone down because of people leaving. And of course, what's happening now is that there's a rebalancing of that and people are going back into the city centres. It'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. Now, I want to tell you a family story. About 15-20 years ago, I took our 3 children on a caravanning holiday. Now, I say I took our children because my husband wouldn't come, because my husband had the disadvantage of being brought up posh. And so there was no way on earth was he going to go in a caravan, because at the time caravans had quite a tacky image that you know, they were badly decorated in orange and brown and stuff. But now caravans have had a resurgence, and an average caravan can cost you in the region of about 20 grand. And the posh ones can sort of cost up to 6 figures, 100,000 and so on. And apparently the caravan building companies have had a huge increase in demand for people wanting caravans. And I think that's fairly short-sighted. It's a lot of money to spend on something that probably in a year's time you're not going to want to use. And I can see the attractions now. You can clean it and keep it for yourself, and you can go on holiday where you like and when you like. But in a year's time, when we've got the option of foreign holidays and luxury hotels and other options, the idea about being cooped up with your family yet again might not be so attractive. So my long-term tip is that there's going to be a huge market in second-hand caravans in about a year's time. And finally, I want to end with a story that made me laugh this week, which is about the sale of a property in Bristol. Now, it was a little terraced house, and a couple had lived in it for many, many years. And the lady of the couple had passed away last year at the age of 98. And the property has just been sold. And the estate agent won't release the price of the sale. And I've got a pretty good idea why. Because the house was full of a huge pipe organ. She was an organist, and her husband had built this organ throughout the entire house. So it started on the ground floor, the pipes went up through the stairs and the landing, and then there was another bit at the top. And so the whole house effectively was organ. Really, it was an organ with the house built around the outside. And apparently sometimes she would practice at home, and he would accompany her on his trumpet from the landing. Now you can only imagine what the neighbours must have thought about this, because it must have shook the entire terrace of houses. And the lady passed away last year, and the house has now been sold, and somebody will move in. And I suspect the first thing they'll do is rip the organ out. In fact, I suspect it's been bought by a developer, because I can't imagine a normal person, a normal couple, for example, wanting to do such a huge job. And it led me to thinking that it's all right in that particular case, because obviously for the couple concerned, the house was their life's home. They were always going to live there. But if you think there's a chance that you're going to be moving, even in the next 5 or 10 years, don't do anything that's really out of the ordinary or drastic with your property, because it will devalue the property and the price will be lower, and you'll have to accept a lower price. So in this particular case, in the house in Bristol, the agent won't release the price, but we will find out eventually, because it will get put on the land registry. And I suspect that property's been sold at an absolute bargain, because there's so much work to remove the organ, and it's such an unusual thing that nobody would have paid any decent money for it. So be warned, please don't install huge musical instruments into your house that you can't then get out, because it will devalue your property. Have a great week. Thank you. Bye-bye.